Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, Naaseh v'Natzliach. I want to welcome you to another session of our Parashat Shavua class here at Shari Ezra. We're starting a brand new book, Sefer Devarim, Parashat Devarim. Before we get started with this very interesting class, Family Man versus Businessman, I'd like to dedicate this class to the Ilul Nishmat of David ben Zohara, Yaniv ben Rina, Shulamit Bat Malka Sultana, Yosef ben Mazal, Shalom Dov Ber ben Benjamin Eliyahu, Benjamin Eliyahu ben Mordechai Lev, Yosef, and also to the general success of Yosef ben Daniel, Avraham ben Daniel, Stacy Esther Bat Miriam and family, Rabbi Guy ben Dina and family, also for Avraham ben Violet, and also to Ilul Nishmat again for Rabbi Pinchas Weberin. You know what's his name? Pinchas ben... No, the Rabbi Pinchas Weberin? Do we... Pinchas Aaron ben Sion. Aaron ben Sion. And of course, for all the people that take their time and make an effort to come here every single week and do this class in person, Yosef ben Ezra, as well as Henshi Gordetsky and Shayna Hensha Bat Levi Gitto. I should get better at this, right? There you go. All right, Be'ezrat Hashem, Hashem vayich otchem, sameach otchem, that you have health, wealth, success, happiness, bracha v'atzlacha in all you do. And Be'ezrat Hashem, that these divrei Torah will be to the atzlacha of all Am Yisrael. Let's get started. Sefer Bamidbar. Sefer Bamidbar, well, let's see. Last week we finished the 4 books, and we finished with Matot Masaeh, very special lesson with Aharon HaKohen. And in this week's parasha, in this week's class, we're talking about Sefer Bamidbar. Bamidbar is the 5th book of Chamisha Chumshei Torah. It's also called Mishneh Torah, and it's also the book that was authored by Moshe Rabbeinu in 36 days, as it begins, Ele HaDevarim. Chazal tell us, Or HaChaim HaKadosh tells us, Ele HaDevarim. Ele is numerical value 36. Aleph is 1. Lamed is 30. Hey is 6. 36. Took him 36 days to write these Devarim. And since Moshe Rabbeinu died in Zayin Adar, that means that he started the writing of this Sefer Devarim in Rosh Chodesh Shvat. So we see that this book is very unique. It's very different from all the 4 that we've learned. And this is almost like a review. Furthermore, as it says in the first pasuk, Ela devarim asher diber Moshe el kol Yisrael. These are the things, these are the words that Moses spoke to the Jewish people. Rashi tells us, Lefi she'en divrei tochachot, the rebuke. This entire book is a rebuke. Harsh words. And if Moshe Rabbeinu took the time out to tell the Jewish people that he just spent 40 years with in the desert, there's an art to what he's doing that we have to learn, we have to figure out the formula, and we have to mimic. As a matter of fact, what is the magic formula? It says that Moshe Rabbeinu used to rebuke with respect. He used to, we'll see that he's hinting over here to terrible events in the past history of the 40 years in the desert of the Jewish people, yet he conceals it. And he's concealing it, why? To protect the Jewish people's honor. So meaning, even though that he's about to mention very harsh events in past history, and he's going to let them know that it was wrong and not to repeat it and to watch out for the future, yet he conceals it. He doesn't say it outright. As a matter of fact, it says, Rashi says on the first pasuk, of Sefer Devarim. El הדברים אשר דיבר משה אל כל ישראל בעבר הירדן במדבר בערבה מול סוף בן פרם בן תופל ולבן וחצות ודי זהב. He says this pasuk is a bit strange because we just reviewed the 42 journeys in Parashat Masayeh, and none of these places were mentioned over there. None of these places were mentioned in the accounting of the 42 journeys. How could that be? So Rashi explains to us, Lefi shehen divrei tochachot, since these are words of rebuke, he enumerated all these places where the Jewish people angered HaKadosh Baruch Hu. However, he concealed the names of the places, Veskiran beremez, and he only mentioned them through a hint, mipnei kvodan shel Yisrael, because he respected the Jewish people. So here's something that's interesting. A proper way to conceal, a proper way to rebuke, no matter how difficult it is or how harsh the situation is to put it in a way where you're not embarrassing the individual, and if you could hint to it, if you can just mention it and they get it on their own. Let's see how it is. Let's see how this formula unfolds. When it says Bamidbar, right? Straight translation of Bamidbar is the desert, right? So why would it be in the desert? Sheikh Isut HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the Jewish people angered God in the desert. Why? How did they anger God in the desert? They said, מי ייתן מותנו ביד השם בארץ מצרים בשבטנו על סיר הבשר ואוכלנו לחם לשובע קוצתם אותנו על המדבר הזה להמית את כל קהלה זה ברב. They complained, why can't we go back to Egypt where we would sit on the pot and smell the cooking of the meat that we would eat and we would be satiated? So we see that they complained about the desert. What does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Bamidbar, the desert. Then it doesn't fully open it up. Next, it talks about Ba'arava. Ba'arava happens to be a place, but he gave. So Bamidbar is the entire desert. Ba'arava is a certain place. And what place was this? This is a hint to how the Jewish people sinned with Baal Peor. Now you could have just said, "Oh, you just sinned with Baal Peor, the worst type of avodah zarah." He just said Ba'arava. He also gives a hint about Mul Suf, in front of the reeds. What's Mul Suf? It says this is the hint that the Jewish people rebelled against God, Beyam Suf, in front of the Reed Sea. בבואם לים סוף, כשאמרו למשה רבנו, המבלי אין גברים במצרים, לקחתנו למות במדבר, מה זאת עשית לנו להוציאנו ממצרים? When they were just facing the right before the splitting of the sea, they said, are there no graves in Egypt that you brought us all the way up to the desert to die? Why did you take us out of Egypt? Also, it says Ben Paran. So what is Ben Paran? This also talks about the Meraglim. It talks about the spies that went into Israel. That whole episode happened in the Paran section of the desert. Uben Tofel Velavan. What is Tofel Velavan? Lavan is white. What's Ben Tofel? So this is a hint to what the Jewish people angered God about the man. What color was the man? It was white. So when it says Uben Tofel Velavan, he's hinting to them to what they were sinning about when they complained about the man. And what did they say about the man? V'nafshenu katsa b'lechem ha'kelokel. We can't eat anymore this type of bread. Continues to say v'chatzerot. What's chatzerot? Courtyards or front yards, right? A chatzer or a backyard or a front yard. The word chatzer in Hebrew. What would that? What is Moshe Rabbeinu concealing over here? He's hinting to the conflict with Korach and Adato. Meaning, when he wanted to tell him about Korach, he said v'chatzerot, courtyards. Why? A courtyard is an enclosure. And what did Korach do? He split people into enclosures. Meaning, here's one camp, here's another camp. So instead of saying Korach, he said chatzerot. That he spoke that that they didn't learn from Miriam after she spoke Lashon Hara, and he went against Moshe Rabbeinu bechatzerot. What's chatzerot? That he split them up like different yards. V'dei zahav. What's v'dei zahav? We see zahav means gold. Over there, he's hinting to the sin of the egel. Imagine how many things he could have just said. Oh, you have been so bad. In the past 40 years, you complained about the splitting of the sea. You complained about the man. You complained about the splitting of the sea. You complained about you fought with the machloket of Korach. We had the chet ha'egel. No, he simply says, "Bamidbar, ba'arava, mursur, v'param, betofel, v'lavan, v'chatzot, v'di zahav." Interesting formula that Moshe Rabbeinu is using to get the message across. So we see over here that sometimes there's a message, something is concealed, but there's a very interesting content that's beneath the surface. I want to continue this and go back to last week's parasha, Parashat Masayeh. If we go to Parashat Masayeh, Perek Lamed Bet, Pasuk Tet Zayin, it says over there about the whole story between Shevet Gad and Shevet Reuven. If you recall, the Jewish people are now literally at the end of their 40-year journey. They are right now at the entrance to Eretz Yisrael. And just as they're about to go and enter Eretz Yisrael and fight for 7 years and divide the land for 7 years, we have two tribes, Reuven and Gad, that come to Moshe Rabbeinu and say, we've decided that the land over here, the pasture, the grazing fields over here, are perfect for our cattle. We are opting out from going into Eretz Yisrael. We would like to stay in the Jordan. Moshe Rabbeinu was very angered by this, and he told him, we already went through this, of people that went against the way of Hashem and tried to dishearten the Jewish people, to weaken their hearts. How could you do this? We're right at the cusp of entering Eretz Yisrael. You now want to do this? You now want to just stay on the other side of the Jordan? You don't want to come to Eretz Yisrael? Now, we see that Reuven and Gad, Shevet Reuven, Shevet Gad, their reasoning was not to dishearten the Jewish people's hearts, wasn't to weaken their hearts, and it wasn't to soften their resolve to enter into Israel. They just made a business decision. They were businessmen. Their business was cattle, and they saw that there's no better place for them to raise their cattle like the side of the Jordan. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu did go and ask Hashem. Hashem approved of them staying on the other side, but with one stipulation, with one condition, that they have to come with the Jewish people, fight for 7 years all the kings that are in Eretz Yisrael, divide the land for another 7 years, and then they can go back to their families. What's interesting about this story is the request and the response. Listen to the request of Shevet Reuven and Gad, and look at the response of Moshe Rabbeinu. Perek Lamed Bet, Pasuk Tet Zayin. ויגשו אליו ויאמרו, גדרות צאן נבנה למקננו פה, והערים לטפנו. The tribes of Gad and Menashe went to Moshe and they told him, here we will build enclosures for our animals, והערים לטפנו, and then we will build cities for our children. Just by the way that they are presenting their need, you can see that they're first businessman, and then they are a family man. What's the first thing on their mind? Business. Let me first make sure that the animals have a place to graze, an enclosure for them, and when I'm done with that, I'll give attention to my family and I'll build cities. Moshe Rabbeinu comes back and answers in Pasuk Chavdalet. He says, "Benu lachem arim letapechem ugderot letzonachem ve'yotzen pichem ta'asu." He says, no. First build cities for your children and then build enclosures for your animals. In other words, what is Moshe Rabbeinu telling them? Family first, business second. We have here something very, very interesting. this is a lifelong struggle that people have, is how much work is enough and how much family time do I need to give? Moshe Rabbeinu sees in the tribe of Gad and Reuven that the thing that they're most interested of is what? Business. He comes back and tells them, no. In a Jewish home, the most important thing is the family. Now, if we just fast forward to today's day and age, we see that a lot of people, the Rambam says that a typical day should consist of 3/8. 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of learning, right? And then you could split up your day that way. So the acceptable for a very long time has been 8 hours of work. Yet we know that there's some people who will work 12 hours or 16 hours. And they're always going to hide behind the guise of who's going to pay the mortgage, who's going to pay the bill. If I don't put in the hour, how are we going to get parnasa? And who suffers from that? The wife that doesn't have the father figure in the house, or the help that she needs from the husband. The kids that don't have the father in the house. Where's Abba? Abba is working. That's Reuven and Gad. Moshe says no. In a Jewish home, it's about family first. And as a matter of fact, what do we know about Parnasa? We know Shemi Tishrei, At Tishrei, Chutz Mitishrei. This is the rule that we know, that everything gets decided on the first day of Tishrei, which is Rosh Hashanah. What every single dollar that you're going to make on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, up until the following Rosh Hashanah, it's already predetermined. What you have to, when you go out there into the world, that's just your hishtadlut. That's just the effort that you're making. How much effort you have to make in order to make money, that's according to your emunah. How much do you trust in Hashem? Do you trust Him enough that with 4 hours of work, you can make a living? Is it 8 hours? Is it 16 hours? Is it 20 hours? Don't get me wrong, there's always going to be days when somebody needs to work a long day, or a long week, or these special cases where you have to put in extra days and extra hours. But if that's the norm, that's when it's wrong. When a 16-hour, 18-hour workday becomes the norm, that's when something is wrong. Shabbat is the reset, the great reset, Shabbat, that spiritual recharge that we do every single week in order to move forward, in order to have the power for the next 6 days. We know that Shabbat, me'en bracha. This is the Mekor bracha. The Shabbat is the one that gives power for the rest of the day, for the rest of the week. So we see over here that a person's emunah is what determines how much time he's going to put in at work. And there's people today, especially after COVID, that 8-hour workday is long gone. People have learned to make money on a cell phone, on a tablet, or on a computer on the go. We've all become global citizens. We can literally be anywhere in the world and do anything that we want to do anywhere in the world. Unless you have a brick and mortar, a business that actually has a physical address where you have to wait for foot traffic for business, most of the world has shifted into being able to do everything virtually and anywhere. Regardless of that, without going too deep into this concept, we understand that there's an emphasis over here with Moshe Rabbeinu, that he's teaching not just Shevet Reuven and Shevet Gad, that it's family first and business second. Interestingly enough, though, if we just continue to Pasuk Lamed Gimel, there's a twist. Vayten lahem Moshe livnei Gad v'livnei Reuven v'lechatzi Shevet Menashe ben Yosef את ממלכת סיחון מלך המורי ואת ממלכת עוג מלך הבשן, הארץ לעריה בגבולות ערי הארץ וסביב. Moshe Rabbeinu gives them the land that they asked for, but we have over here Shevet Gad, Shevet Reuven, and half of the tribe of Menashe, half of Chatzi Menashe. How did they get in there? They didn't ask to be there. Why did Moshe include them? Not only that, why did he include half of a tribe? So let's get some background on Menashe. Who is Menashe? Menashe, he is the son of Yosef. Yosef had two children. He had Ephraim and Menashe. Menashe was the older one. Ephraim was the younger one. When Yaakov Avinu came to bless him, how did he do? He crossed their hands. And it says over there, Yesimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim v'cheMenashe. The Rashi tells us, and the Midrashim tell us, that Ephraim was the younger one, and he was the Torah learner. And Yaakov wanted to show us the importance of the Torah learner. The Torah learner is the most important. That's like Yesimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim, right? Right hand on Ephraim, the younger ones. And Menashe. Menashe, even though that he was the assistant to his father, he helped Yosef with running Egypt, he also was a Torah learner. It's not that he wasn't a Torah, he was also a Torah learner, but he was a hybrid. He was a businessman and a Torah man and a learner. Where Ephraim was just a Torah learner. What's interesting over here? Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, I got over here two tribes that all they're concerned with is work, work, work. Business, business, business. Who's going to be their influence? They're going to be here by themselves. Who's going to be here to influence them? He says, Menashe, come. Half of the tribe, come with me. I need you on the other side of the Jordan. Why? Because you can show them a life that can be half business and half Torah. Half business, and you could have the physical life, the mundane life, and the spiritual life. Because if I leave them on their own, it's going to be all business all the time. And not only that, since half of your family is on the other side, you're going to have a connection with Eretz Yisrael. Here, if I just leave them on their own, they'll be so good, they might not even visit Eretz Yisrael. They might not even have a reason to come to Eretz Yisrael. So I'm going to put Menashe over here, who's going to create the necessary flow of spirituality and family spirit in order to tie in Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Menashe to the rest of Eretz Yisrael. Did Moshe Rabbeinu tell them you're not Torah learners? Did Moshe Rabbeinu tell them you're making a mistake? What did Moshe Rabbeinu do? He sent a concealed message. Chatzi Menashe. Let the half the tribe of Menashe be there with you. And the message was already being implemented without having to bluntly say it to their face.
So important.
The balance.
Yeah, it's on the balance, but also not to embarrass somebody. You know, like when people, they always say,
it's an art.
And it's an art.
If they're going to hate you, it's a sin. If it's not the right, if it's not a person that you know that if by you telling him off or telling him what's the right way, he's not going to accept it out of love, you don't do it. There's only, it's an art.
Going back to last week when you said peace, that you even allowed to lie for peace.
That's the whole thing. There's rabbis that actually know how to do this. There's some rabbis that their entire drasha is one thing. You walk out of there, you say, oh my God, now I understand what he was talking about. Everything was in concealed messages. I'll just throw one other thing over there about Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Menashe. The Arizal says that the reason why they didn't go into Israel is because they had a tainted lineage. And Eretz Yisrael, you have to be pure for it. In other words, Eretz Yisrael, a lot of people think that it's a choice living in Israel. It's not. Israel needs to want you. If the land of Israel doesn't want you, it'll spit you out. A lot of people are here living a luxurious life in Florida, Miami, in America, in Europe, and they're like, oh, we chose this. They didn't choose it. The land of Israel does not want you. A lot of people, some people get spit out and it's ugly. Some people get spit out, but it seems like it's a vacation that turned into a new life. The Arizal says that the reason why Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Menashe did not go into the land of Israel is because the land of Israel at that moment was only going to take the holy and the pure of the Jewish people. And what was wrong and tainted with Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Menashe? Well, Reuven, how did Reuven come to be? Who was his mother? Leah, right? How did Leah's marriage happen? Correct.
Yeah.
Not only that, what happened with Reuven? The way that he switched his father's bed, right? So Reuven has a bunch of things going on. He's on the side. Gad. What happened with Gad? What's the pasuk that Leah says about Gad? Ki bagad. Ki bagad bi, right? Because it says over there that Yaakov, quote unquote, cheated on me, right? The word bagad means to cheat.
Traitor.
Live good. To be a traitor. How did that happen? Well, we know that after Leah had Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, right? She stopped giving birth. She wasn't having any more children. And what did she say? Take my maidservant Zilpah. And after Zilpah had her 2 children, then Leah came and had Gad on her own. So what happened? It's almost like he had to go to Zilpah. So Gad is also sort of tainted. Then comes the half tribe of Menashe. So who are the parents of Menashe? Yosef and Osnat. Who are Osnat's parents? Dinah and Shechem. Shechem is the evil Shechem, right? So because there was that evil lineage from Shechem, half of Menashe could not come into Eretz Yisrael. So we see here that this was also concealed. Arizal reveals to us, hey, you guys are not worthy of going into Eretz Yisrael. Is that what it said? Moshe, Shevet Reuven, Shevet Gad, you are not worthy of getting Chatzi Menashe. You're not worthy of entering Eretz Yisrael. No, Hashem made it that what? That they have a lot of cattle, and He made it that the land, the pasture is so great that they can't pass it up. Right? That's the story. What's behind it? To protect their honor, to respect them. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, even though that he saw that they were more into business, he puts Menashe in there. Did he tell them, you have to be Torah learners? Later on, he'll give that type of rebuke for all of Am Yisrael. But for them, what did he do? Half of Menashe is going to be here with you. Meaning the message is being put into play, but it's concealed without being having to embarrass anyone in the process. So in this week's parasha, now I want to go back to this week's parasha. In this week's parasha, we have another concealed advice for the future. This one is extremely interesting. In Perek Bet, Pasuk Aleph, it says, this is a continuation of Moshe's recounting of the travels of Am Yisrael in the desert. Right now we're getting to the part where it says, Vanefen vanisa midbara derech Yam Suf kasher diber Adonai elai v'nasov et har Seir yamim rabim. It says, and we turned and we journeyed to the wilderness towards the Sea of Reeds, as Hashem spoke to me, and we circled Mount Seir for many days. Vayomer Adonai elai lemor, and Hashem told me to say, Rav lachem sov et hahar hazeh, penu lachem tzefona. He says, enough for you circling this mountain, turn yourselves to the north. Stop right here. Shvilei Pinchas chimed in on this pasuk and opened up a whole new way of how we can see God's concealment and message to us in this pasuk. We'll start off with this. We see that as soon as they got to the desert by the way of Yam Suf, they were around Har Seir. Har Seir, the mountain of Seir, it's a mountain that is connected to who? To Edom. Who is Edom? Esav. By the way, we are in the Galut of Edom, right? We had 4 exiles. We're right now in the last one. What were the first 3? Yosef, you know this? Bavel, Yavan, Mitzrayim, and we are right now in Edom. right? So we already passed 3 exiles, and we're in the final one, it's Edom. So when it says, "V'nasov et Har Seir Yamim Rabim," we will go around the mountain of Har Seir for many days. And what does Hashem tell us? Rav lachem sov et Har Hazeh. It's too much already. You're circling around Edom. Penu lachem tzfona. Go north. It's a very cryptic pasuk, but it's incredible secrets buried within it. It says,
North stands for what?
we'll get to it. Since it says Kadosh Baruch Hu is giving us a hint in this pasuk. Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu is giving us what? Moshe Rabbeinu is giving us a rebuke for the future. He's leaving us. He's telling us, soon I'm not going to be here. And there's going to be all these things that are going to come up in the future. So he's giving us advice for the future. Over here in this pasuk, the Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us that Hashem told him, Kadosh Baruch Hu hinted to us, once again, hints, not straight out messages, hints. How to protect ourselves in the final exile. Oh, wouldn't you know it? It's for us. This message is for us. We're in the final exile. Let's see what Hashem wants to tell us about the final exile. The Galut of Edom. It says, V'nasov et Har Seir Yamim Rabim. Right? And we're going to circle the mountain of Seir for many days. It says that the day, Yamim Rabim, many days, it talks about the final exile. The final exile, it's many, many years that we're in exile. Remember, all the other exiles were much shorter, right? Egypt, 210 years, right? Bavel, 70 years, right? Yavan, how long was Yavan? Also short. We're in the longest one, Yamim Rabim, Yamim Rabim. So it says, when the exile of Edom comes, and we know Edom is the son of Esav, that it's going to be for a very long time. He tells us to protect ourselves during this exile, and also how to reach the final redemption. Meaning, during the exile, what to do, and how to merit the final redemption. How's that so? Rav lachem sov et Har Hazeh. He says, it's too much the amount of time you're going to spend in the exile of Edom. Huh? Yeah, because we're going round and round. We're not doing anything. It's 2,000 years in the same place. Penu lachem tzefona. He says, Penu lachem tzefona, go to the north. What does he mean by that? Hatzpinu atzmechem b'Torah. The word tzafona has the shorish of latzpin, to hide, right? So he says, Hatzpinu atzmechem b'Torah. When you're in this long exile, cover yourself in the Torah world. Get into the Torah bubble. That's what's going to protect you in the long exile. Midrash Rabbah comes and elaborates on this and gives us a conversation between God and the Jewish people. Midrash Rabbah asks, Ma'u penu lachem tzefona? What does this part of the pasuk mean, turn to the north? Amar Rabbi Chia, Amar Elayim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Chia says that Kadosh Baruch Hu told the Jewish people, Im ra'item oto shemvakesh litgarot bachem, al ta'amdu kenegdo. If you see that Edom, the exile that we're in, is coming and is challenging you, don't al ta'amdu kenegdo. Don't stand and challenge him back. Yes. When Edom is challenging the Jewish people, al ta'amdu kenegdo. Do not stand and challenge him back. Wow. Do not stand and challenge Esav back. Do not stand and challenge Edom, the exile that we're in right now, the Americans, the Russians, the Christians. Ela, what should we do? Hatzpinu atzmechem mimeno ad sha'avor olamo. Cover yourself. Hide yourself from him until his time passes. There's a time where he must be in control. There's a time where he must be the stronger one. During that time, just hide yourself in the Torah world. Heve penu lachem tzefona. You have to go to the north, meaning to להצפין, to hide yourself in the Torah world. אמר רבי יהודה בר שלום, אמרו לו ישראל, ריבונו של עולם, אביו מברכו, על חרבך תחיה, ואתה מסכים עמו, ואומר לנו, הצפינו אתכם מפניו, ולך נברח. He tells us, Rabbi Yehuda bar Shalom says, that the Jewish people says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Shel Olam, Yaakov blessed him, al charbecha techyeh, that you're going to live by the sword. Meaning he's blessed to be successful in wars. That's the blessing that Yaakov gave him. And you agree with Yaakov? You agree that he's going to be successful in wars? And you're telling us to hide ourselves from Esav's children? Where do you want us to hide? Where should we go? HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers the Jewish people. If you see that he's trying to get close to you, not to fight you, but to become friendly with you, even to like marry your children, or to come close to you, run away to the Torah. And there's nowhere to hide, rather it's in Torah, because he brings a pasuk in Mishlei that says, Yitzpun li Yisharim Tushiyah. Furthermore, Rabbi Yitzchak says, Hamtinu ad achshav melech HaMashiach lavo v'yikayem. He says, and not only that, the entire time while he's in power, wait, hide yourself in the Torah world, and wait for Mashiach to come. And then the pasuk in Tehillim, in the 31st chapter, in the pasuk 20 says, Marov tuvcha shetzafanta le'echa. How good is it? How fortunate are the ones that you concealed, the ones that feared you, that you concealed them until the time of Mashiach. Now, this is very interesting, okay? Because from this pasuk in Rav lachem sov et ahar hazeh penu lachem tzafona, we have here instructions for this day and age. Meaning there's going to be a time where different how would you call this? Different nations are in power. And right now the power is in the hands of Edom. What are we supposed to do as Jews? Are we supposed to fight them? No. This is their time. But what's the job? Learn Torah. Hide yourself in the Torah world. That will protect you. And eventually when Mashiach comes, that is going to be the time where you can overpower them. The Zohar says that the only reason why we are in the exile of Edom, Gelut Edom ba'a be'avon bitul Torah, because of bitul Torah. You know why they have all that power? Because we don't learn Torah. Ki bezman shekolo shel Yaakov eno osek b'Torah, yedei asav sholtot. We know there's a famous pasuk, Hakol kol Yaakov, vayadayim yedei Esav. Meaning what? When the voice of the Jewish people is raised in prayer and learning, Hakol kol Yaakov, the Jewish people are on top. But when that's not happening, when we're not engaged in prayer and learning, Hayadayim yedei Esav. It's either us or them. There's no two. It's either they're on top or we're on top. How are we on top? If we are engaged in Torah learning, if we are engaged in prayer, we are on top. When we get weak in our Torah learning, when our prayers are not, heartful prayers or prayers of intent, when all our avodat Hashem is like diminishing, by default, automatically, they become stronger. So why is the galut so long and they are so strong right now? Because of us. Because we are weakening ourselves by bitul Torah. Continues to say, bitul galut Edom, you want to cancel out this exile of Edom, the one that we're in right now, you want to end this 2,000 years in the diaspora? Hakol kol Yaakov. Bring back Hakol kol Yaakov. Why? Because bizman shekolo shel Yaakov osek b'Torah and yedei asav shotot. As long as the Jewish people are partaking in Torah learning, it nullifies the power of Esav. It nullifies the power of Edom. So there it is. Magic formula. How do we get out of this crazy world? Increase Torah learning. Increase Torah learning.
Is that also going north? Is that going Sulachan Safona?
Yeah, everything is building off of this pasuk. Yeah, because what's tzafona? Tzafona comes from the word le'atspin, to conceal and to hide. And what is it? When the exile of Edom is so strong, what do you do to be protected from it? Conceal yourself in the Torah world. Go learn Torah. Oh, what happens when you go into the Torah world? They become weak. Because Hakol Kol Yaakov becomes stronger. Ayadayim Yedei Esav get weaker. And we bring Mashiach. Interesting. Because it continues to say in Yeshuva Pliyah, there's a question over here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a pasuk in this week's parasha that says Pnu Lachem Tzefona, and he uses north and Torah together, right? Pnu Lachem Tzefona, Hatzpinu Atzmechem BaTorah, hide yourself, conceal yourself in the Torah. But we know that the Torah is in the south. It's not in the north.
Why is it Torah in the south?
Very good question.
No, it's like I think like North Star, North, I don't know.
Because there's a Gemara in Baba Batra on the 25th page on the second side, famous Gemara. It says, "Harotze sheyachkim yadrim, v'sheyashir yatzpin." Anybody who wants to be smart, right? He has to go to the north. To the south. And anybody who wants to become rich, he has to go to the north. V'simancha shulchan batzafon u'mnorah badarom. And how do you know this? Where do we get this source from? We get this source from Kodesh HaKodashim. Kodesh HaKodashim in Bet HaMikdash. We had the table in the north, and then we had the menorah in the south. We know the menorah is a symbol for knowledge, for the Torah, for the learning. And the table is the symbol for Parnasa. So if we go back to the pasuk, anybody wants to become smart, you turn to the side of the menorah, which is the north. And anybody who wants to become rich, where does he turn to? He turns to the south. I'm sorry.
To the opposite. You said the
Opposite.
North is rich and south is
So Simanaf Shulchan, but right. So the table for richness is in the north, and the menorah, which is for knowledge and Torah, is in the south. So when it says Pnu Lachem Tzafona, when we turn towards the north, that means we're turning to the side of the Shulchan, to the side of money. That's the complete opposite of saying that's a right. Halo Torah hi badarom v'lo batzafon. The Torah is on the south side, not on the north side. So there is a very good question. Why would he use a pasuk that uses the north when the north it actually is connected to money and not Torah learning? You're getting there. There's something there.
There's something
It
there.
also says, "Sina mishpati b'da v'shaveh ha'b'tzedakah." So you have to acquire, it's going to be redeemed through charity. You have to have means to do
Very good. That's also something. All right, let's see what Shlomo HaMelech says. Shlomo HaMelech,
He's a little smarter than us.
the smartest man to ever live, said in Kohelet.
But Kesef Yaneh Etakol, right?
No,
No?
something else. Shlomo HaMelech in Kohelet, Perek Aleph Pasuk Vav, says, Holech el darom, vesovev el tzafon, sovev holech haruach, v'asvivotav shav haruach. What does this pasuk mean? It says a person goes to the south, and he turns to the north, and he goes round and round, around, looking for the direction, and by the time he finishes his turning around, the wind comes back. What does that mean? So we know Kohelet is all cryptic, and it says over here, Holech ala darom, right? A person that goes to the south. Meaning when a person wants to go learn Torah, right? Aval lema'aseh sovev el tzafon. He wants to go learn Torah, right? But in reality, which is the darom, but in reality, what did he do? Vesovev el tzafon. He ended up going to chasing the money. He wanted to get parnasa, v'litasher, to become rich. But what's the problem? Sovev, holech haruach. Meaning that he goes round and round, day and night, around this tzafon, money, in order to earn money. Vasvivotav. And because he's like non-stop running like a chicken without a head to make money, he's dealing only with the things of the worldly things, which only have to do with money. Shav haruach. What happens? He ends up dying. He didn't fill his spiritual quota.
Or physical quota, because it's never enough.
He never, right? So what happens? He gave all the attention to the money side, but he goes up to the Shamayim. They tell him, "Hey, you didn't get enough ruchaniyut. You didn't get enough of what you need to do." What happens? Shav haruach. They send him back in a gilgul. He comes back again in order to, maybe you get it right next time. Now, this is very interesting because we see that there is an importance both to the money side of life and both to the spiritual side of life, the ruchaniyut and the gashmiyut. Okay, so we need balance. How do we balance this? So let's take a look. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Penu lachem tzefona," when he tells the Jewish people, turn to the north, which should be to the side of money, but he wants them to learn Torah, he tells them, no, go tzefona, go deal with parnasa, but rak kefi hatzorech, just as much as needed, but not shvu lachem, right? He's not telling them shvu lachem.
Not saying to sit and settle.
He says, it doesn't say pnu lachem tzefona. He doesn't say lachem shvu lachem tzefona. He says turn over there. Turn meaning you have to just turn, do whatever you have to do, and you move on from it. He doesn't tell you settle over there, right?
It's not reverse psychology.
What he's trying to make over here is the distinction of the words. When it says pnu lachem, meaning just turn, and not to make it shvu lachem, where you just sit there in a way of kviut, where you're supposed to stay there all the time. Furthermore, when a person is there already, batzafon in the north, where he's dealing with parnasa, he also needs to be in a state of mind of darom. Meaning what? Shigva etim Torah. And here is the hybrid. What's the hybrid? That you have to have a balance. Nobody's telling you not to go to work. Nobody's telling you it's not important to have money in your bank account so you can support your family and have enough money for all the wants and needs that you have in your life. Nobody's telling you that. What the lesson is telling you is the balance that's lacking. When there's too much work and not enough spirituality. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when Moshe Rabbeinu wrote in this pasuk, Rav lachem sovet ahar hazeh, in the time of the exile of Edom, that you're going round and round and round and round, that you're, money, and not going to that bubble of Torah, where the Torah, the increasing of Torah learning is what's going to bring the Geula, is what's going to end the Galut. You're going round and round and round. Penu lachem tzefona, okay, make some money, but just turn to it. Go make the money that you need, but don't forget the balance of the Torah. Here, there's a concealed message once again. The concealed message of balance in life. That you are going to fall for the money trap. You are going to fall for 2,000 years of chasing that dollar. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I'm telling you that when you're in this exile, the way to get out of it is to increase your Torah learning. And when you turn to Parnasah, just turn to it, to what you need. Don't make it the ikar. It's the tafel. The Torah learning is the ikar. The money part says, Hashem says, I got you on that. Look how detached we are from that basic reality of what's so important in our lives. And we can see that if 2,000 years later, we haven't been able to get it right, is because a bulk of the people of the Jewish nation have fallen for this plot, for this not trick, but for the way that the Galut Edom is working. It's very hard to get out of it because it's very enticing when it comes to making money, that it takes over your mind and it takes over your life, and you forget that the most important thing is Torah. Well, what happens if you forget that the most important thing is Torah, right? After 120 years, you go up to the Shamayim, and what do? They ask you, what's the big question? What's the big question?
Were you honest in business, and then did you make time to learn Torah?
How do you deal in business?
There you go. So in Masechet Shabbat, on the 31st page, on the first side, it says, "B'sha'ah shemachnisim adam ladin omrim lo." After 120 years, when they bring him into court for judgment, they ask him, "Nasata v'natata be'emunah?" Did you do business honestly? "Kavata etim laTorah?" Did you set times for learning? Do you have set times for Torah learning? He continues to say, "Asakta b'piriya v'rivya?" Did you make sure that you were did you make sure to procreate, to have children? Tzipita leYeshua? Did you yearn for Mashiach to come? Pilpalta b'chokhmah? Did you infer in wisdom? Hivanta davar mitoch davar? Did you understand one thing from another? When I looked at this Gemara, I said that there's, first of all, a reason for that order. And it's incredibly shayach to our lesson. Look at the questions. It starts off, Nasata v'natata be'emunah. Were you honest in your business life? In other words, what? It's important. It's important to go out there. Not everybody. There's a famous machloket in the Gemara between the Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Shimon, but I think between Rashi and Rabbi Ishmael, the famous conflict with should a person learn all day or work all day, and they came back that some people tried learning all day and didn't succeed. Some people tried to work and they didn't succeed, and they said that the best thing was half and half. That the life of a Torah learning, the all day learning, not everybody can do it. Not everybody has the Gemara cup. Not everybody has the temperament to sit all day long and learn. But to go out and work and study, that is something that's achievable. So when it says over there in Masechet Shabbat, Nasata v'natata be'emunah, they understand that business is a part of life, an important part of life. But they're saying, did you do it honestly? And the question right after it is, Kavata etim laTorah. There it is. It's the Ruchaniut versus the Gashmiut. Yeah, you gave a lot of attention to business, but did you also have enough time for Torah life, for family life? And how do we, first of all, business, then Torah, and then here comes the family. Asakta b'piriya v'rivya? Did you procreate? Did you get a family? So was your business and your Torah and your family in check? Look what they're worried about. How's your family? How's the businessman versus the family man? And is your business honest? And how's your Torah? How's your spirituality? And how's your gashmut? And how's your chaniut? And the following question is: Tzipita leYeshua? Did you look forward to Mashiach? Why? Because anybody who is honest in business and thus and sets times for learning, and he's a family man as well, he is bringing Mashiach. Tzipita leYeshua, that's the next thing. It's one thing pulls another. One thing pulls another. It's a link in the chain. Everything is connected. Meaning, if you're honest in business and you have time for and you made time for Torah learning, and you have a family, you're a family man, you're a businessman, you're a spiritual man, you're bringing Mashiach. And what does it say? Pilpalta bechokhmah. Did you delve into wisdom? What is delve into wisdom? Meaning, you guys waiting for me to close up? Okay. What is it delve into wisdom? You have over here all the chokhmah of the Torah. Did you open up the Chumash and read the Rashi about the hidden message that Hashem gave when He says, Benu lachem tzafona? Did you hear about the Ephraim and Menashe? I'm sorry, Shevet Reuven and Shevet Gad, how Moshe Rabbeinu put half the tribe of Hatzi Menashe? Why did He put it over there? Did you get the wisdom and you pilpalta b'chokhmah? And then the last one, such a strange question, but it's perfect to our lesson today. Hivanta davar mitoch davar? Were you able to put the pieces together? You understand one thing from another? Hivanta davar, understand one thing from another thing? Meaning, did you read about Reuven, Gad, and Chatzim and Hashem and understand what Hashem wants from you when you go to Israel? It's so interesting that this Gemara actually ties our entire lesson together. Because it's about having the balance between family, business, and spiritual. And then once you have all that in place, you're bringing Mashiach. And the only way you can get to that is by acquiring wisdom and learning davar mitoch davar. And there it is. There's the formula to life. This is what life is about. What is life all about? What's the purpose of living? Here it is. Be honest in your day-to-day handlings. Bring a family into this world and raise them in the Torah way. Make time for Torah. Acquire wisdom. Learn one thing from another, and that's what brings you closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's what brings Mashiach. And if you're disconnected with any of these parts, you're missing a large part of life. And imagine, after 120 years, they ask you, that means that's the top 5. Give me the top 5 questions on the board. Just like that game show. Right? And there it is. They're going to ask you those questions. And if you're not going to get the right answer right off, there it is. The judge, the board goes away, and there's the judge. What are you going to do? Shava ruach, like Shlomo Melech, send them back, rewind. He didn't get the point the first time. We're going to do it for him again.
But we're all old souls. We all came here a couple of times, so a lot of times. So we obviously have to redo everything.
But Baruch Hashem, the word Gilgul, the word Gilgul, reincarnation, is numerical value 72, which is the same numerical value of the word Chesed. It's a true Chesed that Hashem has with us, that He gives us another chance, He gives us another shot. This Gemara sums up our lesson also in a different way. We see that the rebuke that is necessary to get us on the right track. Sometimes it's tough, like Moshe with Reuven and Gad. What was he telling them? What did Moshe tell them? How can you weaken the hearts of the people? He really, how could you want to stay on the side of the Jordan, right? He gave it to them hard. And sometimes it's concealed. When Moshe was telling them, in Parashat Devarim, what does he tell them? Right? All of a sudden he's telling us what to do in the future. I think what's happening over here, right before the end of the year, as we're just like a few weeks before Yom Adin, is Moshe Rabbeinu's telling us, are your priorities straight? Do you have family first and business second? Are you honest in business? Do you have balance between work, family, spirituality, gashmiut and ruchaniut? And do you have the wisdom to take the hidden messages, or even the clear directions from Hashem, to learn things out from one another and be successful on this journey? Do we have that? Because that is the combo that's going to hasten the Geulah, that's going to bring Mashiach. There's one last part that I wanted to read. There's a concept that says, Yafet Talmud Torah im derech eretz, she'igyat shenehem mishakachat avon. It says that Torah learning and work, right, pragmatica, that when a person is busy, yigyat shenehem, when he's busy learning Torah and busy work, he has no time to sin. If you're busy learning, if you have a good, healthy Torah schedule, a healthy work schedule, you don't have time to sin. As it says, those that are on the north side, that are constantly busy with their parnasa. Or to the ones that are on the south, shetoratam emunatam, the ones that the Torah learning is their profession, is their trade.
That reminds me of like when those who teach and those that do. They always say teachers like that.
Right.
Those who do and those who teach.
So he says, great is the ones that all day long they're in teaching, but Masechet Avot, Perek Bet Membet, it says, רבן גמליאל בנו של רבי יהודה הנשיא אומר, יפה תלמוד תורה עם דרך ארץ, שהגיעת שניהם משכחת עוון, וכל תורה שאין עמה מלאכה סופה, בטלה וגוררת עוון. רבן גמליאל, the son of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, says that it's good to have Torah learning with a job, that when a person is busy with both working and learning, he doesn't have time to sin. And any Torah that doesn't come with work, the end result is that it's going to be nullified, and it draws with it, drags with it sin. Meaning, if a person learns Torah and he doesn't apply it, or he learns and he doesn't have work, eventually that's free time, time that the void that he has in his life with free time eventually causes him to sin.
It's true, it's like you have to be busy. If you're idle, that's what causes everything.
A lot of times they say that a person, even their older age, should still be working. Why? Because free time is one of the biggest reasons for sin. We learn from this שבזכות לומדי התורה עוסקים בתורה כל היום, in the merit of those that learn Torah and toil in Torah every day, and in the merit of the workers, the businessmen that still are Torah learners, is the reason why we're going to merit Geula Shelema from Galut Edom Beviat HaMashiach. Why? Because we have the Yadayim working, and we also have Kol Yaakov, the Torah. The rabbi over here is saying something incredible, that the Geula is going to come in the merit of the businessman who learns Torah, the one who has the balanced life, the family life, the business life, and the Torah life. The Geula is going to come from him, because he is the one that is, by being so busy with family, with work, with Torah, he doesn't have time to sin. And that's what brings the Geula. So Hashem vayich atzchem, samach atzchem. Very nice lesson to learn about. Again, a pasuk that we would just glance over, a pasuk that we would not even think about these things. Midrash Rabbah opened it up for us. Shvile Pinchas opened it up for us. Baruch Hashem, we're able to get a very nice learning about what Hashem wants from us in this day and age. שיתו לי בכם לחילה, פסגו מנתן למטה ספרו לדור אחרון.